The night had fallen heavy over the prairie, a kind of darkness that swallowed even the sound of crickets, and under its suffocating silence lay a young woman, trembling violently against the cold earth, her body gripped by a fever that seemed determined to drag her away from life itself. Her lips were pale, her breath shallow and ragged, and her eyes half open but unfocused, as though they could no longer cling to the world around her. She had been abandoned, left behind in the middle of nowhere with no family, no shelter, no warmth, only the cruel chill of the night, air and the fire of sickness raging in her veins. Each shiver that ran through her thin frame carried the weight of loneliness, and each cough echoed against the emptiness of the prairie, like a cry for help no one could hear. Yet fate has a way of working in whispers, and where her strength faltered, destiny brought footsteps, heavy, steady, purposeful, cutting through the stillness of the desert night. From the shadows of the horizon came a figure on horseback, a broad-shouldered cowboy whose hat was pulled low to shield his eyes from the wind, his leather vest dust-stained from the day's ride, his gaze sharp but softened by something deeper, compassion. He had seen hardship before, the kind that carved lines into a man's face and taught him to recognize suffering when it hid, in the corners of the world. When his eyes fell upon her fragile form, trembling violently in the dirt, something inside him knew he couldn't just ride past and leave her to fate's cruel hand. Dismounting in one swift motion, he dropped to his knees beside her, brushing the tangled hair from her clammy forehead, feeling the fire of her fever burn against his rough, calloused palm. "Easy now," he whispered, his voice low but steady, the kind of voice that carried safety even in chaos. She stirred faintly, her cracked lips parting as though to speak, but no sound came. Only a faint whimper, weak and broken. Without hesitation, he pulled her into his arms, holding her steady against his chest as though the sheer strength of his embrace could fight back the darkness pressing in on her. His jacket came off in one swift motion, wrapped around her shivering body to shield her from the merciless chill. She trembled still, her head rolling weakly against his shoulder, but he held her tighter, his warmth pressing against her fevered skin. "You're not alone anymore," he murmured. His words meant as much for himself as for her. Beneath the stars, the prairie seemed endless, yet here in the cradle of his arms, she found an anchor, something stronger than fever, stronger than fear. He shifted her gently, rocking her as though she were fragile glass, whispering quiet reassurances, his heartbeat steady against her ear, a rhythm that fought back the storm inside her. Hours seemed to stretch endlessly, the fever raging and breaking in waves, but through it all, he remained unshaken, his presence a fortress against despair. He fetched water from his canteen, wetting her lips with drops of cool relief, wiping her brow when sweat poured, whispering prayers to the night sky that she would fight her way back to him. At times her eyes fluttered open, dazed and lost, and she would find his face shadowed in the dim starlight. His gaze locked on hers with a determination so fierce it seemed he could command her to live by will alone. And when she slipped back into the haze of fever dreams, she would still feel the strength of his arms, grounding her, refusing to let her slip away into the abyss. For him, it wasn't just duty or kindness. It was something unspoken, a connection born in the most desperate of moments, where a man and a woman, strangers under the open sky, found that survival wasn't just about enduring. It was about holding on for someone else. The fever broke with the faintest light of dawn, her shivers slowing, her breaths lengthening into something steadier, more certain. She stirred against him, her hand weakly clutching at his shirt, her lips forming a single word. "Thank you," barely audible, but heavy with meaning. His chest tightened at the sound, a swell of relief breaking through him like sunlight cutting through storm clouds. He brushed the hair back from her damp forehead and smiled faintly, a smile carved from exhaustion but softened with tenderness. "You're safe," he whispered, and for the first time she believed it. Around them the prairie stretched wide, endless and untamed, but within the circle of his arms there was safety, warmth, and a promise unspoken. She would never be left alone in the darkness again. Sometimes life writes its most powerful stories, not in the grand gestures, but in the quiet moments. When a cowboy chooses to kneel in the dirt, holding a stranger steady through the fever of the night, and in that choice carves a bond unbreakable by time or distance. And as the sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky in strokes of gold and crimson, the prairie no longer seemed a place of loneliness. It became a place of new beginnings. Their journey was only just starting, but already they had faced the darkness together, and together they had found the strength to rise again. And dear listener, if this story has touched your heart, if you believe in the power of resilience, love, and the courage to hold steady in life's darkest hours, make sure you subscribe to this channel, because more stories of strength, hope, and unbreakable spirit are waiting just for you.